you're in the conservative media world like I was in, you are told to say every day that Donald Trump walks on water. I was told by my bosses to only say good things about Donald Trump. I told them to go.
Most of our opinions about Donald Trump do not come from CNN or from MSNBC or from Fox. Most of our opinions about Donald Trump come from Donald Trump himself.
People say, oh, I should get over it, I should move on, but it's like, how can you? I mean, they lied about liberals, lied about Democrats, lied about Trump. It's kind of hard to just move on.
I know quite a few people my age who are in the Republican Party who they're thinking about leaving the Republican Party. They're thinking about leaving this Trumpism, this phenomenon.
I threw up the red flag, I threw up the white flag, I threw up whatever I could throw up as a warning that this was bad agricultural policy and it was going to hurt us for a long time.
I was reading the Bible and reading some scripture, and in the Bible, and some verses jumped out at me. And I had to repent for that. I said, God, I am sorry for voting for him.
What does Jesus say? Love God with everything you have and love your neighbor as yourself. Where is that love God, love neighbor, love self? That's the kingdom of God. And what we're living with right now is Christianity that is about empire, not kingdom of God.
This is not a political issue. This virus does not care. It doesn't care the color of your skin. It doesn't care about the God to whom you pray. It infects, it spreads like wildfire, and it can kill you. Game over.
Hi, my name's Joe Walsh. I'm running for president. On the Republican side, I'm taking on Trump. I just wanted to say hi. I'm Joe Walsh. I'm a Republican taking on Trump. Hey, just wanted to say hi. My name's Joe Walsh. I'm a Republican taking on Donald Trump. Who is there a Democrat you like? Right now, who could be them? I think he's everything our founding fathers feared. I don't know how long I'll be a Republican. I don't know how long I'll be in the race, because now I know I can't win. I just thought it was so important that there's a Republican out there calling him out every day. The Tea Party movement was born when W was still president. I ran for Congress in 2010. When I went to Washington, I directed a lot of my anger at Obama and the Republicans, but mostly it's the anger at Obama that a lot of people remember.
These are all constructive ideas worth.
Come on, President Obama. Quit scaring the American people and quit talking about Band-Aids and peas.
I'm Helene Miller Walsh. I am Joe's wife. When he was there, we couldn't afford to get an apartment. So he is one of the many, many congressmen from both sides of the aisle who stayed in their office. And when I was there in DC, I stayed with him in the office. It was romantic in a weird kind of way.
Full disclosure, Republicans hated me more than Democrats. Swear to God. I didn't go to Washington to make friends. We're better than that.
I just heard from Joe Walsh a couple minutes ago. He was very gracious.
I am so very proud of what we've done. You want to say something on the radio and you want to get noticed. And so if you can just be a little outlandish, a little more outrageous. I got very anti-Obama. And I personalized my attack on Obama. I said things about Obama that I've had to apologize for.
Were you ever aware of telling a lie when you were on the radio? Like, was there a party line that you knew was bullshit, but you just wanted to say it because everyone was?
No, not any sort of policy lie. But when I would say Obama's a Muslim, that's probably the best example you'll get, Melissa, from me of Joe Walsh saying something that he's only saying because he wants to get a nice outrage from his listeners.
And I hope he said, Russia, investigate Bernie.
Hey guys, I'm joking.
Yeah.
I think the problem is we've lost the ability.
Yeah, we can't say.
Yeah. Okay. Let me. Are you going to caucus on Monday? Who are you caucusing for?
I come from Trump's world. The same people who voted for Trump voted for me. The same people who voted for Trump listened to me on the radio for 6 years. They were my family. In a way, I was part of the cult, and I left the family. I come from a big old Irish Catholic family of 9 kids. You'd call my family kind of suburban Republican. I've always loved history. My love for American history led me to my lifelong interest in politics and policy. Got a master's degree in public policy with a specialization of urban poverty. I taught American government and American history at a number of community colleges in the Chicagoland area. Fast forward to 2016, a lot of people assume I was a big Trump supporter. I never really was a huge enthusiastic supporter. Donald Trump blocked me on Twitter because I would criticize him. What a lot of people identify is that I'm going to grab my musket tweet. If Donald Trump loses, I'm going to grab my musket and I'm charging Washington. I thought it was a funny tweet. I mean, come on, a musket, really? I voted for Trump. He wasn't Hillary. That was an easy vote. The minute Trump won, I tried to do the whole good Trump, bad Trump thing. Every day, week, and month, it became harder for me to find good Trump. The final straw for me, away from Trump, was Helsinki 2018, the summer of 2018.
Dan Coates came to me and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
My name is John Schindler, a former senior analyst and counterintelligence officer with the National Security Agency. The Helsinki meeting between President Trump and President Putin of Russia, I think was an eye-opener for a lot of Americans. This was not a normal sort of interaction between an American leader and the leader of a frankly hostile state, a major adversary.
As the pair sat down together, the US president delivered a wink and some effusive praise.
I got so fucking pissed off, I started throwing things around the living room. I said, that's it, I'm done.
Oh, it was terrible. I think there was universal shock and disgust in our intelligence community that the intelligence community assessment on the 2016 election, that was publicly rejected, repudiated by the President of the United States in favor of the Russian take on what happened in 2016. Nothing like this has ever happened in our history. This was a truly shocking moment. And even, my Republican friends in the intelligence community had a lot of very troubling questions about what's going on here.
I think that the United States now has stepped forward along with Russia, and we're getting together, and we have a chance to do some great things.
And I don't see how any fair-minded person could watch what we saw on camera at Helsinki and not have just almost endless questions about what the real relationship is between Moscow and Donald Trump.
Did you have something to eat? Did you have something to eat?
He started telling me, he goes, this is not going to end up well. I knew it was coming because he had been told by the network that if he didn't have anything nice to say about Trump, don't say anything at all. They stopped sending new advertising to him. They started moving some of his shows that were in smaller markets into the graveyard shift.
And then I lost my radio show. I would speak my truth on Fox News, and then I lost Fox News. Well, I'm not gonna lie, it made me sad. I love a platform. I love having the microphone, and I knew I was gonna lose that platform because I believed this man was evil.
I wasn't expecting death threats. We have these t-shirts that say Walsh Freedom. They left that t-shirt in our mailbox with a bullseye on the back in black marker.
I got death threats every day. It endangered my life, but by now, I'm at peace. I did what I believed in. I put my country first.
Let's be real, these are scary times. So the hell with all those conventional things. Today I'm declaring my candidacy for President of the United States because it's time to be brave.
A big part of what I did when I ran for president was, you saw me, to apologize genuinely for everything I did to help put this asshole in the White House.
Someone who lies virtually every time he opens his mouth.
And a lot of the angry Tea Party rhetoric that people like me expressed help lead to Trump.
We cannot afford 4 more years of Donald Trump.
But you know what else led us to Trump? An absolutely arrogant, out of touch Republican Party establishment.
Okay.
What was the average Donald Trump supporter looking for? Their world was changing. Their world was changing too damn fast. The America they were used to, this is what they would tell me back in the 50s, 60s, and whatever, you know, it was changing. Donald Trump heard them and just frickin' took advantage of them and demagogued them.
My name is Jennifer Murcia, and I'm an associate professor at Texas A&M University, and I wrote a book called Demagogue for President, The Rhetorical Genius of Donald Trump. A demagogue literally translates into a leader of the people, and that's what it meant in ancient Greece. And the second definition is the one that we're more familiar with, and that is a villainous character. It's someone who uses polarizing propaganda and who polarizes for their own gain. Of course, the most infamous demagogue, the one that everyone knows, is Adolf Hitler. And Donald Trump does all of those things that Hitler recommended that the demagogue would do. They were things like using slogans, having rallies, using force, silencing opposition, making it seem like what the people who were attending rallies had was something very special.
You're incredible people. You work so hard, and you're smart as hell.
Using reification, which is treating people as objects.
Republicans believe in the rule of law, not the rule of the mob. That's what it is.
That he's very effective at using demagogic rhetoric to control the public sphere, to polarize, to increase distrust. He's actually very strategic, and he's very consistent in how he uses his strategies.
The border is a much more dangerous problem. It's a much bigger problem. It's a problem of national security. It's a problem of terrorists.
You're worried about people coming in the country? I'll build a wall. He said, I'll bring back clean coal. I'll bring back manufacturing. I'll bring back Christmas, right? Well, you can say Merry Christmas again. Oh, God, it'll be 1958 again.
The man who brought Christmas back to America.
And it was all a bunch of bullshit and lies, but he responded to them. and the rest of the party didn't.
And all of the strategies that Trump uses prevent us from holding him accountable, either because he's demonizing his opposition, denying them humanity and standing, or ingratiating himself with his followers in such a way that they won't hold him accountable and question what he does. And it's exactly what the framers of the Constitution tried to prevent.
So he is a con man, Donald Trump is, and you're right, he's a really good demagogue. And he's been able to fool people and con people to the point where almost all of his followers will follow him till the bitter end.
Does it bother you that he's increased the debt faster and more than Obama did? Does that bother you?
No.
It doesn't?
No, I wasn't aware of that, if that's a fact.
Yeah, not even close. Do you think Donald
Trump had a rally in Des Moines a week and a half ago. I went and talked to people in line before they went into the rally. Most freaking bizarre, depressing thing I've ever done. I asked 40 people, my God, I asked 40 people one simple question.
Do you think Donald Trump has ever lied to American people?
No.
Never?
Never.
I mean, because he was pretty much a straightforward guy.
I don't.
He who believes not.
All 40 said no. They didn't hesitate. No, he hasn't lied. No, he hasn't lied. What is that? Because we know he does all the time.
It really is like the cult. And you don't realize that until you talk to folks.
But I think a lot of people, a lot of the Trump people believe he doesn't. Because every goddamn day, Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham are telling them that he doesn't lie. And they believe that. Laura Ingraham and Tucker and Rush, they're smart. They're manipulating their listeners. Like they're trying to foment unrest. I've tweeted often the last 5 months that watching Fox News can get you killed. They lied to their audience about coronavirus. They purposely fed them shit they know's not true because you had the president, the idiot out there, talking about the virus is no big thing. They're fomenting unrest right now. You've got Antifa out there. They're coming for you and your guns, and they're coming for your family. They're purposely trying to manipulate and scare their viewers. I find that to be off the charts dangerous.
Fear sells, we know that. Fear appeals, outrage. Outrage is great at creating an audience. And so the Fox News formula, unfortunately, is frustration, outrage, fear appeals, demonizing the other. And that's a great recipe for building a loyal audience. But it's a scary world for that audience. And that scary world abuts with reality sometimes and in unfortunate ways.
I did not plan on coming into this studio today, to lead with what I'm about to say. But wouldn't you know it, Trump opened his damn stupid mouth. I mean, Trump has been a cold, hard slap across my face. Because I've watched him every day now, the last 3.5 years, and listened to him every day. And at least once a week, I go to bed. I've gone to bed these last 3.5 years, and I've said to myself, oh my effing God, did I sound like that? Did I spew shit like that? Have I been that ugly with my personal politics? The election of him has forced me, and it's a good thing, to change my tone. I'm still the same Tea Party conservative, but you and I can sit down. Maybe 5 years ago we couldn't have, because I was a jackass. You're not. Maybe I was. I've changed my tone.
How does that feel? I mean, how does it feel?
Liberating! Really? Oh, I'm out of the closet, baby. I'm sitting here naked. Oh my God, it's a very liberating experience. I'm no longer the guy just fighting and being an SOB. I'm trying to pull people in. I'm trying to have conversations. I find it much more liberating.
And so they're doing everything they can to rig the system to make sure that Donald Trump is the nominee. That's been clear in every single state.
I'm going to announce tomorrow on CNN that I'm ending my campaign. The life of a soon-to-be former campaign
Oh
manager.
my God. The glamour.
The glamour.
And a map.
Okay, we are following this gray mobile out of town.
Joe's doing radio again, and it's been outstanding radio. He's getting a really great, diverse audience. Somebody sent him an email yesterday. I thought it was so perfect. They said, when somebody says, Joe, I don't agree with you, he said, I never know if they're going to be a Democrat or a Republican. Joe is listening to the audience, and they're having a discussion, and he's saying, look, I'm going to listen to your opinion. Now hear what I have to say on the issue, and then, think about it, call me back. We'll talk about it again. Send me an email.
Yo, boom! Joe Walsh back with you. This is the Joe Walsh Show. Donald Trump is everything our founders feared because we began this great experiment called America by doing what? By revolting against a king. A king! A dictator, an authoritarian. And now 230 some years later, we have that very person in the White House. A king, a dictator. That, regardless of politics, that should scare everyone.
Ever wonder if conservatives have anything good to say about liberals? Well, today I'm here at the March for Life, where thousands of conservatives gather every single year to protest abortions and march for life. I'm going to ask them, what is one good thing you can say about liberals? I don't know if they'll have anything good to say, but I'm certainly excited to find out. Let's go see. I first began to be aware of Donald Trump's run for presidency when he came down those Trump Tower stairs on that fateful day. When Donald Trump became the nominee, it became very clear to me that as a member of the Republican Party, I was expected of supporting him, and also I wanted to support him because I believed that that was the message that I wanted to convey to others, that the Republican Party is the right party. After he became the nominee, I actually attended a few Trump rallies with my dad, who I forced to drive me all the way to upstate New York, 5 hours away. My dad even shook hands with him. I took a picture with Mr. Trump. And yeah, at that time, I was very, very captivated by him. I thought he was charming, and I began to actually believe in his message.
We need somebody that literally will take this country and make it great again.
I began to think that he would make America great again. I began thinking that Donald Trump would be the best thing that had ever happened to America. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. My parents always took their right to vote very seriously, because they did come from the Soviet Union, and being in America, to them, voting was a tremendous privilege.
I think that she started being interested in politics probably when she was 12. But then it somehow grew into a real hurricane.
My political opinions kind of started to form. I affiliated myself with the Republican Party and with the conservative movement. So I started off with my political involvement by volunteering on a few local campaigns, and I'd gotten to know some people in the local Brooklyn Republican Party who saw that I was very politically ambitious. I expressed to them that I wanted to make a teen Republican club.
Atia and the Brooklyn Teen Republican Club for putting something like this together. They're not only speaking from their club, they're speaking for the people of this district.
Lock her up! Lock her up! Lock her up!
I'm Jerry O'Brien, and back in the 1970s, when I was a teenager, I had Botch's job with the Teenage Republicans in Brooklyn. And for the last 30 years or so, a political consultant working here in New York and in about a dozen other states for clients like John McCain. I met Botch when she was asked to moderate a city council debate between three candidates, one of whom was my client. I think she was 16 years old at the time, and wow, impressive. You know, she was a rising star in the Republican Party and someone that was considered a real superstar. She was someone that was talked about as, you know, can we get her to work on our campaign? You know, what would she want? You know, how can we approach her? A lot of local politicos were stunned by her because she was so young.
I don't even know whether they knew how young she was. Nobody ever asked me for a release. And I was quite perplexed by that. As much as I may have had some concerns or differences, it was very important for me not to interfere.
I used to attend some turning point events. It was very easy to meet people who are quite famous in the Republican Party. And it was definitely very intoxicating, seeing the president, his sons, all his staff members, being able to take pictures with them, talking with them about the work you're doing to help the president was very empowering in a way. Unfortunately, it kind of blinds you. I definitely watched a lot of Fox News, stayed as far away as I could from CNN or what Trump would call Clinton News Network, because I did buy into the whole, I would say now, conspiracy that, oh, CNN is trying to brainwash you, you know, ABC is trying to brainwash you, NBC is trying to brainwash you.
Being protected by the fake news back there. Did he get treated badly and unfairly?
And Fox News is the ultimate network.
I'm Stephen Hassan, and I'm a mental health counselor. I'm a cult expert based on my 40-plus years of activism after I got deprogrammed out of the Moon cult, which I had been recruited into in the 70s. I wrote The Cult of Trump as an act of conscience about Trump having the stereotypical profile of a cult leader, which is malignant narcissism. It's a term that Erich Fromm first coined. It has all of the characteristics of narcissism, but then all of the psychopathic, antisocial characteristics as well. And Trump had all of them.
As I say, crooked Hillary, crooked Hillary. She's as crooked as they come.
I was watching him use cult leader playbook kinds of linguistic tactics.
He made a deal with the devil. She's the devil.
Of course, the certainty.
An angry Democrat was on a mission to resist, obstruct, delay.
The repetition, the name calling.
Because they're fake.
With sticky terms for his opponents that are very hypnotic.
Pocahontas, Elizabeth Lawrence. No, seriously, she's becoming mainstream. You believe that one?
Oh my God. What were Donald Trump's rallies like? They were always filled with very long waits for President Trump to actually arrive.
There is a psychology behind waiting for a really long time.
He made many people stand for about 7 hours, 8 hours, older people like my dad, which was definitely not very nice of him.
Because you have an investment, you know, and so your mind starts orienting to this must be worth it, because I'm waiting all of these hours.
They were intense. They were filled with screams. They were filled with chants of lock her up. Sometimes they were even filled with cursing.
There's nothing wrong with chanting. On the influence continuum, it's a benign form of social influence. The problem is when you have an authoritarian that wants complete loyalty, that wants complete obedience and dependence. And there's a contagion effect when you're with a group of people. If you're chanting it, it will make you believe it, and it will make you feel good about it. So it's a self-reinforcing cycle of the cult identity.
It was definitely, you know, you felt like you were just overfilled with adrenaline when you were at these rallies. It's kind of like a drug, if you ask me, a very, very unhealthy drug.
Information overload was a huge technique where people would get so overloaded that they'd kind of get in a numb state, and then they can get indoctrinated.
There were a lot of people that go from rally to rally to rally to rally, and it's like a music event. They've got these big screens up, Junior and Ivanka, and they're all there on the screen giving a message. It was insane.
We will build the wall, believe me. And who is going to pay for the wall? Who? 100%, folks.
He kind of had this hold on everybody in the crowd. He made everybody completely agree with whatever he was saying, even when he said some pretty borderline things.
The people of Ohio can save America from radical Democrats. They've become radical. These are bad people. We can't let this happen to our country.
And I could parallel with Jim Jones, with Hubbard of Scientology, Moon, Koresh, Warren Jeffs of FLDS.
We will make America strong again.
And I knew that this was not a healthy person to run the most important country and most powerful country in the world.
We will make America great again. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
I was working at the time for Darren Aquino, and he somehow managed to attain 15 tickets to the inauguration and to the inaugural ball. I went with him and with the rest of our campaign team. It was honestly, it was one of the best times of my life. I remember there was a small group of people who snuck into the very front of the inauguration with resist signs, and I remember thinking that they were just completely crazy. But looking back now, they knew what was coming. They felt it. They felt the danger that this president could cause. They felt what we could not.
I know a lot about Charlottesville. Charlottesville is a great place that's been very badly hurt over the last couple of days.
I remember very clearly watching that whole press conference.
And you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
And just thinking, how can a president of the United States say that there are fine people on the sides of racists and white supremacists? Being that I am Jewish, and in my family we have had over 40 people killed in affiliation with the Holocaust, it was very troubling that he could even somewhat agree with the people that apparently want me kicked out of America.
White supremacists run down a young woman with a car because she's demonstrating against them. I just think that that was a moment that crystallized for her and for a lot of people that something is really wrong with this man.
It was in some ways quite shocking to me. Making America great again reminded me of Adolf Hitler's slogans, and both myself and my husband told her about it. We tried to make sure that she understands a lot about history and how it could evolve, and about human rights for sure, and human dignity.
Both my parents grew up in the Soviet Union, where nobody was allowed to express how they think. It was 1984, but in real life. It was the North Korea of the 20th century.
In a totalitarian regime, every aspect of the lives is controlled. There is no freedom of speech. There is no information. People were arrested for smiling under certain circumstances. Everything had to be uniform. You had to be part of the crowd, and you had to be the same as everyone else.
In the 1970s and 80s, you had a movement of dissidents who were primarily Russian Jews, who became known as refuseniks, for their refusal to accept the Soviet system. And the refuseniks got a lot of attention on the true nature of the Soviet system in a way that, previous dissidents had not been able to.
My husband actually had been a refusenik, And when we got married, he was already hoping that he would be allowed to leave the country. But it turned out that my addition to his family meant that nobody could leave because I was a daughter of a famous scientist and a political dissident, and such people weren't allowed to leave the country.
The Soviets wanted to make life as unpleasant as possible for these people and succeeded in many cases. The lucky ones got out, not all did.
Perestroika started. We finally left in the very beginning of 1988. So the miracle happened and we left.
By having parents that grew up in that environment in the Soviet Union, I realized that we can't let that happen in America. I remember getting a phone call from one of the leaders of the Brooklyn Republican Party saying that the comments that I had made to a reporter about my club being dissatisfied with Trump's Charlottesville comments, all I said was, I'm extremely disappointed, and my members, my teen Republican members, were extremely disappointed in the comments he made in Charlottesville. And he said, well, you can't say that. We're Republicans, you can't say that. And I remember being so infuriated at the moment and thinking to myself, why is somebody telling me and my members how to think? How can we allow that to go on? We have a president who has a terrible relationship with leaders of free nations, of European nations, and then we have him having a great relationship with dictators, and I think that's very, very telling. Most people in the United States have never experienced living in a dictatorship. From the experiences of my parents, which they've always shared with me to make sure that I know what is dangerous and that if America ever becomes like that, it would be dangerous, I will say that they don't want it. Maybe right now there are some Trump supporters that are even saying we should only have the Republican Party, or rather the Trump Party, and that is such a dangerous thing to say because they don't want to live in a place like the Soviet Union. They don't want to live in a place like Nazi Germany, because what ends up happening is mass murder, mass propaganda, mass brainwashing, and they don't want that for our country, even if they don't know it. I was at this kind of crossing point where I was like, well, what do I do now? I was afraid of coming out and saying, hey, I don't support this guy anymore. I can't support him. I just can't do it. When I began seeing people openly going out and saying, hey, we cannot support this man any longer, what he's doing is dangerous for this country, I began to be inspired by it. I began to think, maybe I can do it too. It will not be the end of the world. At the end of the day, I have to stay true to who I am. I remember I was not the same person as I was at CPAC 2018, standing and applauding for him, waiting in lines for hours just to be in the front when he was speaking. This time I was in the back. I left after a few hours because I was so tired and he was just going on and on and on, ranting, obviously not reading anything off of the teleprompter. I just didn't care anymore. I realized then that, wow, this is really it. This is over. My relationship with Trump is truly, truly over.
Batya took being with the Republican Party and leaving it very seriously, but this is how she is. She takes everything very seriously. She takes a lot of time to ponder, to think. Then she comes out with her conclusions. The biggest relief for me wasn't even her political choice that changed, but that she was allowing herself to see the truth. I think that this is the most important thing.
I graduated from high school in June of 2019, and I decided to take a gap year to figure out more what I want to do later on in life, to figure out who I am, and that has definitely helped me continue to come out of this Trumpism that I was in for so long.
I'm Dr. Dina Grayson. I'm a physician, scientist, and an expert in viral pandemic threats. Israel was very quick to recognize that there was a problem and they were science-based about it.
Israel's citizens, they really followed the directions that were given to them by the government. Trump supporters respect Trump more. So regardless of them hearing medical opinion, if they hear Trump say that, hey, coronavirus is not a big deal, then it's not a big deal to them, regardless of what all the medical doctors are saying.
I can't even imagine how Basha felt being in Israel, knowing that her family and loved ones are in New York City, but knowing that your loved ones are in a place that the government's not doing anything, they're ignoring the threat. You see what the Israeli government's doing. You know, she must have felt just helpless. I mean, that must have been horrifying.
Since we last talked, I came back from Israel, where I spent 6 months on my gap year. Afterwards, I spent 2 weeks in quarantine because of coronavirus. After coming back to the US and flying into the airport, I immediately felt that everything was very much out of place, especially compared to when I was last here.
We're Americans! If Hillary Clinton would have won, the world would have been over. It was game, set, match for America.
Unfortunately, many of my former colleagues in the Republican Party have completely become Trump bots. They now harass me on Facebook whenever I post anything. They say really, really nasty things to me, which honestly don't bother me.
Patty is very resilient. It doesn't mean that she doesn't get hurt, but she can rise above that. That's true.
In order to come to the understanding I have now about the president and about the current state of our country, I had to go through what I had to go through with supporting Trump and working for the GOP. And without that experience, I would not have been able to ever fully see the extent of what Trump is doing and how harmful it is. I feel very grateful to be out. I feel grateful to see the light, so to speak. And I feel like the second you see what Trump is doing and the harm that it's doing to this country and to our nation as a whole, you can't unsee it. And I'm just praying that Trump supporters finally see it so that they can unsee it and that they vote the right way.
You know, when I became of political age, I came of age in the Reagan year, when we talked about a shining city on the hill. He was talking about bringing people up, making people feel that there was something better out there that we could achieve. You know, there's a perception out there that most farmers are Republican. That's true. That's true. Because they're conservative in nature just by their wiring. It's the independents. I got involved in my local party on my Republican Central Committee. Listen, I'm a Reagan Republican. The ideals of diplomacy, the ideals of statesmanship, American exceptionalism, if you will.
We will make America wealthy again.
So then we get President Trump as the nominee. And I say, all right, what are we going to do? I and those around me struggled. We struggled with this. I theorized. I said, all right, consoling myself. There's nothing that candidate Trump can do that our tried and true institutions or the Congress can't fix. Here's the tagline. Boy, was I wrong.
My name is Brian Keel. I'm co-executive director of Farmers for Free Trade. Farming's much more than a profession. It's really a way of life. It's a culture, it's a heritage. And for farm families, it's about not just keeping your farm alive for yourself, but being able to pass it on to your kids and your grandkids.
I was born and raised in Shelby County, Ohio. In 1983, my wife Deb and I started out on our own. We had a pickup truck a 2-year-old daughter, and $2,500. From there, we built this farm that we're on here now, up to 560 acres that we own and operate in west central Ohio. But between then, I spent 30 years with the United States Department of Agriculture, administering federal farm programs to farmers in the area. And to coin a phrase, a watershed moment, if you will, for agriculture was under the Obama administration, the Waters of the U.S. rule.
The work of all those giants who came before me to support our natural resources and to help all Americans get out into the great outdoors.
Essentially said that any waters that are on even private property could be regulated by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency.
I think that waters of the U.S. took on a life of its own. It became this symbol of government overreach and concern. As a matter of principle, we don't want government coming on our property. We don't want government regulating us. That's a pretty strong ethic in rural America, very heartfelt.
Our nation was founded, settled, and built by farmers.
When Trump very astutely said, I'll use an executive order to rescind for the waters of the U.S., that resonated with farmers. You know, on election night, I said, all right, the status quo is no longer acceptable. Let's shake some things up with government overreach. Let's shake up relationships with the EPA. Let's just shake it up. Hey, you know what? This guy might just be all right. There was something else he did that became much darker.
We're going to stand up to China, withdraw from TPP, which is another disaster.
He withdrew from the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, where 11 countries plus the U.S. had essentially surrounded China. China is a bad actor.
All of those countries working together in a group sent a very clear signal to China that America was the counterweight. And that was important for so many reasons. Number one, huge export markets. The American Farm Bureau estimated it would put $4 billion every year into the farm economy if we entered into that deal.
But Trump withdrew because he had to go it alone. He had to go it alone.
The United States has been taken advantage of for many years by many countries, but nobody's done it like China.
The president is very, very good at playing the victim and then imposing that victimhood on those that he's speaking to, whatever the group is. He'll use what I call subjective descriptors as unfair, ripped off, cheated.
Trump has said, I'm going to fix it for you. And he says everyone else is corrupt. All of these politicians are a part of the problem. They're part of the conspiracy. He presents himself as the best version, the best example of America winning. And because he is such a winner, he will win for America. And, you know, it'll be easy for him to do.
And what we did in 2016, it's never been done before, and we're going to do it, I think, again in 2020.
He hasn't provided a plan. One of the things that Trump does repeatedly is he uses a rhetorical strategy that's very common in propaganda called glittering generalities, which says, it's going to be so great, it's going to be perfect, you're going to love it. You know, I'll tell you my plan later. And so you believe him that he has a plan, and a lot of times you'll sort of self-persuade. So you'll agree that his plan is the greatest because it's the plan that you would do. So you provide him with that plan in your head, and he can get away with not providing one at all.
Beginning in January through the middle of the year in 2018, the administration picked a fight with, I believe, every country on the planet short of Israel. And the way they picked that fight was through punitive tariffs.
President Trump's chief trade advisor, Peter Navarro, said, no, I don't think other countries will retaliate against us. We're a large market. They can't afford to lose us. Well, everybody did retaliate against us, and it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that they would.
They retaliated by imposing their own tariffs, import tariffs, on our agriculture products, which then left our sales collapse around the world, which then left our pricing collapse. So now all of a sudden, we're not competitive.
It really hit our farmers hard. We found that our exports overnight dropped, for example, in the case of China, from 20 billion a year down to less than 10 billion, about 9 billion in exports. So we lost $11 billion worth of market activity just with that one trade war.
Let me tell you who made these trade deals. Farmers have built these trading relationships over decades with all of these countries. We developed those markets in the Pacific Rim so that we were bringing dollars back by the boatload. And those were going right into rural communities, right into the hardware store, right to the feed store, right to the fuel store, and into local schools through property taxes.
I think some farmers were on board at the beginning, but there's a lot of people who are losing faith, and I think there's a lot of realization that this trade strategy of President Trump's is really decimating the heartland.
Placing very massive tariffs on China. And just so you understand, these tariffs are paid for largely by China.
You know, one of the things that is mind-boggling here is the president continues to say that China or other countries that we've implied tariffs on, import taxes, that those countries are paying the tariffs. An unsuspecting public who isn't knee-deep in politics buys that. The American people are paying those import taxes. And every time the president stands up and says that, I want to kick my foot through the TV because people are buying that. They buy it.
The people that pay the tariffs are the U.S. businesses that are importing products. You're paying the extra cost, and you're paying that cost to the U.S. Treasury. It's the government interfering in a market and creating inefficiencies in the market.
You know, let me give you an example of how Trump has proceeded to ravage through the American people. It goes like this. People were frustrated before President Trump. It was like, say you've got termites in your house, okay? You've hired 2, 3 exterminators to come in over the years, and they all have pretty much the same procedures, the same chemicals, but you know, it's still there. It's still bugging you, to coin a phrase. So this new guy comes into town. He's got new white trucks, gold lettering, of course. He claims he's got new procedures, new chemicals, a new process, a new way of doing business. And you know what you do? You say, you know what? I haven't been satisfied with these other vendors. I'm just going to try this new guy. Because, hey,
What do you have to lose?
what have I got to lose? We call him up. He comes roaring up the driveway, jumps out of his truck, walks right up to your front door, throws a Molotov cocktail in, burns your house clean to the ground. He turns, he says, termites are gone, and he hands you a bill. That's what we've got in the United States. Total destruction, and he's handing us the bill just because we thought he had a new idea.
What do you have to lose?
The tariffs were my turning point. In July of 2018, I'd had enough. The administration was beginning to pay farmers bailout money, I call it hush money, to keep us quiet while they continued to eviscerate our tried and true trading relationships. So I did this op-ed, and I led it with a riddle. I slept with Donald Trump because he said he loved me.
I love you more than anybody's loved anybody. Are you ready?
Right this way, baby.
When I got up in the morning, I realized all I got was screwed. When I went to tell the world about it, he offered me money to keep my mouth shut. Who am I? Am I somebody named Stormy? No. I'm the American farmer. That hit home. That hit home with people.
You say you wouldn't support him now, is that right?
And that set me off on a cable news frenzy, which resulted in the local Republican Party disavowing me as a Central Committee member. Right then, the war's on. The war was on. When I started to get out of step with the Republican Party locally and nationally, it was because of what I saw as populism beginning to creep in. So let me explain to you my view of what populism is. It's nothing more than a perennial search to find a villain to slay, with never a plan of what to do with the body. Who's the villain on the right? Anybody that disagrees with you. Our traditional trading partners, people with brown skin, are villains. Our traditional institutions, the FBI, our intelligence services, they're all villains on the right. This is the fallacy of populism. They're all about tearing down, but never about building up. And it's left us where we are today. And I'm going to fight it. I'm going to fight it to my last breath, because it's going to destroy us as a country.
We've had 3 years of trade wars. If a farmer has working capital, a lot of them have burned through their capital at this point. Anyone that had a cushion, you know, it's said a farmer can survive 1 bad year, maybe 2 bad years, but boy, you get into the 3rd bad year, it gets really hard to keep going. And so that's where we were when COVID hit. And COVID was just another layer of injury on top of the farmers.
But just like many things, it's not what happens to you, what bad hand you're dealt, it's how you play it. It's how you respond.
I would say that an abomination, and that is really when they even had a response. I mean, they waited for months before they did anything. There were constant lies, deflections.
No nation is more prepared or more equipped to face down this crisis. As you know, we are rated #1 in the world. We're also helping other nations. Many other nations, we're helping them a lot.
Denials. I mean, we had Mr. Trump back in February saying, oh, like magic, we're going to be down to 0 cases. Each and every day, we're losing close to 1,000 Americans. The fact that the United States of America has handled this more poorly than almost any nation on earth is an embarrassment.
For agriculture, it's been a disaster.
China and some of those people are major places we export for.
Yeah.
If we can't get rid of it, we can't get rid of it in the United States, our market's going to go down.
Agriculture has been built over time to be very, very efficient. Processing plants went down. That backed up all of the cattle, all of the hogs, left them on farms. There's no market. And then for farmers, no ability to sell your crops, which resulted in a collapse in prices, which then resulted in yet another agricultural bailout.
When farmers lose money and when the ag economy is disturbed and disrupted, it's not just the farmer who gets hurt, it's the equipment dealer, it's the Main Street business, it's the hardware store, it's the schools who lose tax revenue and have a hard time keeping their doors open or continuing to pay teachers. It really ripples throughout rural America. Many of American farmers are 2nd, 3rd, 4th generation farmers. So when a farm bankruptcy happens, it's not like losing your job. That's bad. You go out and find another job. It's about losing your way of life, and it's about losing the opportunity to pass that heritage on to your children.
Bankruptcies are up. Suicides are up across the nation. That's a canary in the coal mine that all is not good in agriculture. We can do it. It is can-do attitude across the board. But when you have an administration that has their foot on our neck and has created a situation where we're now part of the welfare state. Farmers have no choice now but to play ball with their captor, and that's the administration. And they're stuck, and they know it, and they hate it. It's the worst thing you could do to the independent spirit of a farmer. I am angry. I am angry. American farmers, we don't run, we don't spook, and we don't hide. The fact that this administration left agriculture weak on trade and relationships with other countries makes me question where we're going to go from here. How are we going to rebuild these markets after the pandemic? How are we going to do that? Where are we going to go to get relationships? America should be revered in the world, respected and revered. Here's a news flash. We're not revered. We're tolerated. Because never forget, America first is America alone. In 15 or 18 years, I've got a grandson right now. And he's going to come to me and he's going to say, Grandpa, we're studying this in history. What were you doing then? I'm not going to tell him that I hid behind a safe fortress. I'm not going to tell him that I was silent. I'm going to tell him that I stood up. That I stood up and I spoke truth to power. That I stood up for what I thought was right.
He's not the typical politician that gets nothing done. If you look at his background, his business is phenomenal. I mean, businesses all over the world.
I felt that Trump was like this Captain America, General Patton kind of guy, you know, ready to take on Muslims, ready to take on immigrants, you know, make America safe.
What is that America that the MAGAs envision? What does it look like?
Where America was a very conservative, you know, back prior Nixon, I think. You know, maybe like during World War II, where America won the war, and there's patriots, or, you know, the way America used to be, if that makes any sense. When you join in MAGA, that's something that really consumes you, because you really go all the way in. And it sort of takes over you. I saw how conservative pundits were talking about Twitter, and I thought, you know what, that sounds kind of fun. So I decided to go that route, and then that's where I started trolling. My name is Damon Weissman. I served in the Army for 13 years, and I was a chaplain assistant. What a chaplain assistant does is provide security for the chaplain. The chaplain doesn't carry a weapon, and the chaplain goes where the soldiers go, and that even means the front lines as well. So somebody needs to watch out for them, make sure that they're safe. I've been in different combat situations and, you know, was able to survive it, make sure the chaplains, both chaplains that I was assigned to, brought them back safe. Yeah, I was very proud. I was a decorated soldier and got out with an honorable discharge. After the Army, our plan was to go live in Israel. I was part of this campaign team in Israel. I created a Facebook group, Americans in Israel for Trump. I was very actively involved, wrote pro-Trump articles. They had a Trump rally in Jerusalem. They had Trump and Pence making a video to us, and they knew the fears of American Jews, you know, concerning Islam, Palestinian.
Together, we will stand up to the enemies like Iran, bent on destroying Israel and her people.
People were very pumped up, excited. Even in Israel, they had the lock her up chants. I was part of campaigning. I went to the rally, and when I was wearing the whole Trump shirt and hat. And yeah, I was really all in.
I'm Alan Silverberg. I'm the CEO of Digijax, which is a cybersecurity company, and I'm the author of Bots Against Us, which is a book about how bots and other digital tools have been used against America by various countries. Back in 2016, we suddenly started seeing a number of social media bots that shouldn't have been there and that were acting very strangely. And when we started paying attention to them, it became very clear that they were Russian in origin. David and several other people were aggressive trolls. What I was really focused on was this constant battering of people, that good people who were just saying, hey, I'm gonna go vote for Hillary because boom, and then all of a sudden there'd be like 1,000 people telling them what an idiot and what a horrible person they are and they're gonna kill babies, and then that person shuts up and they never tweet again or they never post on Facebook again. And I saw a lot of that. In the 2016 election, we were dealing with a troll army, really.
Like the ultimate satisfaction of this trolling, especially when you go after a blue check on Twitter, whether it's a celebrity or them, where they block you, and it's sort of like a badge of honor. You feel empowered. I guess it was sort of like an addiction.
What most people who are using these tools don't understand is that the people who own the social media companies and the designers and the engineers, they have designed these products to be addictive. They aren't designed for anything else. They're designed to be addictive.
It's always about owning the libs, to get them triggered. Because we're the tough conservative Trump supporters. It's like either our way or the highway. It was that kind of toxic mentality.
If you want to start a lie, you start by telling the lie. And then you tell that same lie to a few people. And you especially tell that lie to a few people who you know are going to also tell other people.
I believe in demonizing of Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, thinking that Dems were an enemy of the people.
Right now, we have people in Congress that hate our country.
I went after Sarah Silverman and got pictures wearing Nazi outfit, as her comedy routine. And of course, like I said, the goal was to get blocked by celebrities, but Sarah Silverman, she didn't block me. She actually responded. I was kind of caught off guard that she was one of the first celebrities that actually interacted with me, and so I was kind of like, whoa. And then I kind of thought, wait a minute, she's Jewish, I'm Jewish. Why doesn't she like Trump? He's pro-Israel and everything. So I was amazed by her response. Oh, this is new. So I give her credit because she encouraged dialogue, and that sort of brought my wall down. When she responded, her followers could see that, and so I started talking with them as well.
O'Connell?
Yeah, Morrissey.
Yeah. I'm Irish.
Half Irish.
Which half?
The middle.
See, I can't keep up with this lady because she is naturally a funny person.
I just started noticing David popping up in conversations from time to time, and I just kind of hoped that he would be able to expand the bubble he was in, the people he spoke to, his echo chamber, to listen to and communicate with different voices. I remember seeing your profile and you had a MAGA hat on and conservative in your profile and stuff like that. And we kind of started a dialogue with each other. Very polar opposite views, I think.
Yes, I remember that as well.
I wasn't telling him not to like him or anything like that, but I'm like, if you're going to support somebody, know what you're supporting and know everything that you're supporting, then decide whether you do actually still align yourself with that person or not. We always had a sort of respectful dialogue with each other. I wasn't trying to convert him or anything like that, but some of the things he was talking about were provably not correct. So it was just encouraging him to follow more sources and people so that he could better inform his followers.
I believe the whole thing that he thought he used his own money. He didn't have any money from the people. Just like we thought that he would not get paid while he was president. I thought he was this successful businessman, that he could make the economy strong. When I learned about dodging a draft by Times, that sort of sunk. This is not who I thought I voted for. I thought he was this patriot.
Okay, move out.
And, more and more I learned about him, I sort of felt like I was cool, thinking that Trump was something more than what he really is. And I started to begin to realize that a lot of Fox News and conservative media were lying.
People make decisions based on what they experience, what information they have at the time. And if they discover later that they were lied to, the information was incorrect, you don't just feel bad. You just say, look, if I could go back in time knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have gotten involved. Instead of people continuing in a road where sunk cost fallacy is the technical term for it, I'm going to keep going because I've been invested for so many years and I put so much money into it. But it's like, no, if it's not what you would have wanted to do, if you knew the accurate information, time to change. And you're not a bad person if you go, oops.
From then on, I never looked back. I felt betrayed, lied to, how the Republican Party was, who they were, the so-called principles that they had. So I sort of felt betrayed.
He just became more caring and compassionate about other people that didn't necessarily have the same background as him or beliefs or anything like that. I think it was probably about 6 months into the conversation maybe, and you'd sort of said that you'd never met or spoken to a trans person. Do you remember that conversation?
Yes, I do. I definitely remember that.
And he said to me that, he's never met a trans person, and I sort of said, well, how would you know that? And he was quite derogatory in how he sort of spoke about them. And I said, well, David, I'm trans. I transitioned a long time ago. We had quite a long conversation about that, and I sort of shared what it was like growing up and how stressful it was. I knew when I was 3, and I grew up, and I spoke to him about the bullying that I've experienced, and death threats even, and abuse, and the discrimination that trans people face every single day.
I got to know you as a person, and it's true, when people say that trans people are people too.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what really softened my heart about it. And I know Sarah does, someone close to me personally, finding out that he's trans.
Absolutely.
Yeah, give me a second. A couple of months ago, I found out that my is actually trans, and I just excuse me.
But I think for me, when you told me that, I was just grateful that we'd had those conversations, and that you're so much more compassionate for the community now, and you know that we are just people trying to live our lives and maybe a positive part of society too. And I think that since you found that out, perhaps that's maybe why we started speaking, so that sort of open your heart to these things so that you could better support you. And of course, as I've said before, I'm always there if you've got any questions or need any support or anything like that as well.
And definitely made a huge impact. I mean, learning about the science part of it, and realizing how it's, really real compared to what, I thought growing up and learned about it growing up. And, I'm definitely grateful that it happened so I could be accepting of my, and he had told me that, back in my Republican conservative days, how I used to view the LGBT community. I mean, it definitely would have been a totally different reaction. So I'm very grateful how this journey happened.
The minute he started questioning Trump and starting to question all the beliefs he had been told, everybody turned on him. He was a traitor. He was now in the cult of Soros and the cult of the libtards and et cetera, and that is extremely cultic.
There were former military comrades that called me traitor, and it was not easy. And then later on, I had trolls trying to say that, oh, my story is fake. I was never a Trump supporter. I was never a Republican. Into personal attacks, oh, I abandoned my kids. They try to use intimidation and try to stop us from speaking out.
It's a telltale sign, because on the influence continuum, if you're in a healthy group, you're in a church, you're in a synagogue, and you decide you want to go to a different church, your friends are going to say, oh, I'm going to miss you, stay in touch. In mind control cults, they demonize you and say you're going to hell, or you're losing your soul, or you're a traitor.
I'm glad that David was able to have some people reach out and show him a different way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible that someone like David could have been targeted while he was in the military. That's a very common occurrence. He was participating actively, without his knowledge, but actively in an active information war.
I believe a lot of people are seeing Trump who he is. I created a Facebook group called Former Trump Supporters, and I am not the only former Trump supporter. There's a lot of people that have joined the group that is sharing their story, especially the way he's handled the pandemic. It is a big eye-opener for many people.
It will take effort on the part of the management and owners of these social media platforms to acknowledge their role and to start making positive changes. And it's also going to take, a lot of users saying, hey, can we maybe have something different here? Can we have a different type of experience? These tools are wonderful, but they're damaging people also. So how can we still use these tools, but get away from the damaging aspects?
Inspirational messages, one and all. I really appreciate the chance to speak about my journey, my conversations with David, and I hope it inspires more people, not just people that might be of a particular political leaning, but also just people in general, to reach out to other people and be kind, and just have discussions. You don't have to call each other names or anything like that. Just remember that they are people, and just try and find some commonalities, and I promise you'll find more things that bring us together than set us apart. And if we can all do that, the world will be better, and it really needs it at the moment.
I definitely feel like I'm a better person now. I'm going on the right track. It's bigger to fight for rights of people who don't have rights than to fight for your own needs and wants. And having a soft heart, I think is making me a better father, better person. And I'm going on the right track. I lost weight. I'm going to college. I have, the second chance at life. It definitely feels like the veil is lifted, and it gives you a purpose.
It is true that all the major world religions have the love your neighbor as yourself teaching in there. The Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Hebrew scripture, the Christian scripture, the Buddha, the admonition to love across differences is baked into our religions. But also, in the earliest biblical texts, you can begin to feel the who is my neighbor, or who is my brother, or who is my sister starts getting smaller and smaller and becomes the Christians are my brother and sister. The ones in this community are my brother and sister. And that is already a detour from where Jesus was.
Every human being has tribalism just baked into our DNA, into our nature. And it's a survival thing, we want to protect our own people. So that's something we all have. But the gospel is explicitly anti-tribal. Jesus did away with tribalism. He makes all of these appeals to moving beyond tribalism.
My name is Nathan Munson. I'm an evangelical Christian, and I'm a Liberty University graduate. Being an evangelical Christian means having a deep and personal relationship with the Lord. It means that in my daily walk, I am teaching people about the Lord through the gospel. When I was 5 years old, my parents received a job offer in South Korea, and they moved there. We lived there for 7 years. From there, we had moved on to Saudi Arabia, and then I finished up my high school years in Shanghai, China. This is not my home, nor is China my home, nor is Korea my home. The world is my home. So the Lord has really given me an empathetic heart for that. So I think a lot of times my political theory is, well, what is helping everybody? What is loving everybody?
My name's Ron Hawthorne. I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. My dad worked for Chrysler, and as I got older, got involved in some drugs. Alcohol was part of my past. I just kind of got lost in life. I did some jail time, and when I got back to Detroit, I really had to sit back and think about where my life was going. I was asking that question, why am I here? What am I doing? And that's when I met Cindy and another gentleman named Richard, and they sat down and started talking to me about God and about the Bible. And through my own reading of Scripture, it talked to me, and I knew that Jesus Christ was God.
I met Ron about 4 years ago at a Bible study that was sponsored by my church. And about a year later, we started dating. We've been married for 1.5 years, and he has answered to my prayers. Being a Christian is the foundation for everything I do. Every single thing in life should be centered on what would make Christ happy.
Liberty, it's an unabashedly conservative school. They're not going to hide that. I just think when you populate a school with only conservative teachers, and when you populate big gatherings with only conservative things, and even when you bring in pastors that are a little bit more political than they are Christian, you start to get this identity that's kind of a Christian Republican, where sometimes you're kind of taught that the Republican values are also Christian values, which was this feeling that anything the Conservative Party put out, we have to support as Christians, which I think is wrong when you actually think about it.
I'm Pat Conkey. I was an evangelical pastor for 20 years. I've been a lifelong Republican until Donald Trump. It's been very easy, I think, for Donald Trump to co-opt evangelicals, because we have in our nature a little bit of an authoritarian bent. So if we have our leaders talking about we should obey our rulers, we shouldn't speak against our rulers, that just really feeds into the narrative that somebody like Donald Trump or any authoritarian is trying to put forth.
The average church member will usually just do whatever the leadership suggests and thinks is best. And so I think a lot of the average church members, people like me, just vote for Donald Trump because they have been told by other people that he is the best candidate, and it's easier to do what you're told than it is to think for yourself.
One of the first things that authoritarians will do is to co-opt the religious movements of the day. But it's much easier if you can co-opt the Christian movements of the day and get the leaders of the church speaking on your behalf, then so much the better.
Father, thank you for the way that you do provide for us. Pray that you would pour your overwhelming blessing and wisdom on the president.
Heavenly Father, we pray.
Want to know where God is? And the poet wrestling to make meaning of this time. I'm the Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis, and I'm the senior minister in charge at Middle Collegiate Church, the oldest continuous Protestant church in North America. Many of my friends who call themselves evangelical say that what they mean is that they take the Bible seriously, or some of them would say biblical literacy. Some would say sola scriptura, only scripture guides our lives. But I think we know what's happened is that the white supremacists across Protestantism, somewhere in the 70s, 80s, co-opted Christianity to make it synonymous with their worldview. And that's not the first time that that's happened. I mean, I think the Christianity that is the religion of Jesus got kind of empired, I would say, when Constantine looks in the sky and sees a cross and decides to make it the state religion. Since then, we've been battling, all of us, about what it means to be Christian. Eastern Orthodox Christians, Roman Catholic Christians, Protestant Christians.
So I found that when the 2016 election came around, it was a subtle feeding of basically discrediting the other side and only giving one version of the other side. One of the things I think we were taught was that as long as the other side remains pro-choice, they are always going to be at odds with the Christian community. It is us versus them. I mean, my original reason for voting for Trump, and let's be honest, both of them were not pro-life, but he at least used the language we liked. And while I saw that language as feeling like it was a little bit not true, I was sitting there going, that is a big deal for me.
We're going to protect Christianity.
Pro-life Christians are being used by the Republican Party. Before I went into ministry, I was a speaker for pro-life causes. It's been part of my life, and I still believe those things. But what I see is that the Republicans understand that a lot of Christians who are pro-life will vote for any Republican who claims to be pro-life, regardless of any other issue.
I started hearing these fear tactics. Well, all these horrible things that'll happen if Hillary gets in. If Hillary gets in, we're going to lose our religious freedoms, and she's going to interfere with our churches, and there are going to be more babies killed through abortion, and all these bad things are going to happen, and you can't let that happen.
These appeals to fear work because white evangelical Christians, without even realizing it, have lived in a position of having so much power and control in the country that we feel a little bit of a sense of loss of that privilege, and it feels like persecution. It's not persecution. It's a slight loss of privilege.
Part of mind control is what I call phobia indoctrination. And this is the implantation of irrational fears that if you question the leader, the doctrine, or the group, or want to leave it, terrible things are going to happen to you.
This is called the snake, and think of it in terms of immigration.
So if you can create evocative satanic imagery in people's minds.
Poor thing, she cried. I'll take you in, and I'll take care of you.
So they're not even conscious that they're seeing it. It sidesteps our frontal cortex, our critical analytic mind, and we react emotionally because we want to survive.
Oh, shut up, silly woman, said the reptile with a grin. You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in.
All dictators use fear. Hitler did it, Mussolini did it, Stalin did it. You can go through history. And Trump would never have been elected if you took fear manipulation out of all of the mind control techniques.
That election was my first one. I get to put my vote down. It's exciting. But for some reason, I felt like there was just this weird pressure to vote for Donald Trump. And feeling like if I didn't vote that way, there would be a bit of ostracization.
I'm a Protestant. I'm very proud of it.
I was like, maybe he'll get better. Maybe he's just being kind of a jerk right now and he'll get better. We all thought so.
Well, it was getting closer and closer to election day, but I was struggling with it. So I went to the pastor of the church. I says, I'm struggling with this. I don't know that I can vote for this man. Can you give me some spiritual advice to vote? And he says, look, we need to get certain judges in there because we need certain laws passed, like for abortion or for Christian rights. Okay, well, that sounds all good. And I says, well, what does the Bible say? He says, so he goes and gives a story of, who was it?
King Cyrus, I think?
King Cyrus. And it made sense, you know, that, okay, God does use wicked people sometimes. And I still wasn't at ease with it, but being a new Christian, I wanted to follow the leadership. They were more experienced when it came to the Bible. If you say the Bible says that, I have to trust you because I don't know.
If you read what Jesus says, you cannot possibly be in this religion that would think Trump is Cyrus. Read that story. Cyrus killed a bunch of people and then let the Jews go. Are we really literally believing that a God of love wants us to repeat that?
Donald Trump really, I think, appealed to them in terms of sin and redemption, you know, that I've done things wrong, but I'm sorry for doing those things, and I'm not perfect, but who is? It's a real sacrifice rhetoric, so I'm sacrificing for you. They're out to get you, and if you see what they've done to attack me, just think of what they're gonna do to you when they have the chance.
I will fight to protect you. I am your president of law and order.
I remember standing in line just waiting to get this over with, and I just wanted it to be done. I wanted it to be over. I didn't understand what I was doing. It just felt wrong, but I was told it was right. And when I got home that day, I felt bad. I felt dirty. I just felt, you know, this wasn't right, that this was not the right thing to do. And it's one of those things that I had to compartmentalize that. I had to put it in a folder in the back of my brain and forget about it, not knowing that it would come back up again.
What really motivated me to oppose Donald Trump was pastorally. I've been a pastor for 20 years, and I've seen the impact that it has on people to follow him. Over the last 4 years, I've watched him make decisions that no Christian could support.
I think where it affected me was actually, it was deportation, it was immigration, because that is my heart. It was calling them names. It was describing them through these terrible language that I was like, I wouldn't even say that to my worst enemy.
We have people pouring in from not just the southern border in Mexico, from China. And then they get in and we say, gee, that person just came into our country. He just robbed a store and killed somebody. How is that possible? Because they send us the people they don't want.
I just sat there and I said, this is a man who, his hatred of this goes beyond his party.
I see Christians trying to excuse his behavior, to make sense of it. Because we have this cognitive dissonance about Donald Trump, where we know that so much of what we see is not right. in order to support Donald Trump, a Christian has to divide their mind between these things that we know. And so it ends up being emotionally and mentally unhealthy. So some of it is just the denial of basic facts. Some of it is walling yourself off from hearing those facts, so you don't have to deny them. But then some of it is actually changing your character to start to say, I guess it's okay.
I literally had somebody come up to me and they're like, oh, you're a Christian, so you must have voted for Trump. I felt that my identity as a Christian was always put into question because a man was in our presidential office who spoke as if he was a Christian, was supported by so many Christian communities, and yet did everything that could be against the Bible. I felt kind of frozen because I was like, oh my gosh, I voted for this guy. Kind of felt like I brought out a dictator into leadership.
I was sitting in the break room with a coworker of mine, and I like to talk about God. I'm one who likes to share my experiences with God. And he asked me, well, why would I want to be a Christian when you guys support such a horrible human being? I was just taken back. It stunned me, it stopped me. I didn't know what to say. I found it hard that day to concentrate on work because it's like a knife going right through your heart for me to have to face that. And that's how God works on us, you know. He makes us face the things that, where we have shortcomings and the things he wants to change inside of us. And then I was reading the Bible and reading some scripture, and and some verses jumped out at me. And I read this. There are 6 things which the Lord hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination to him. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness who utters lies, and one who spreads strife among brothers. And it was just like, boom, there it is. It's the exact opposite of who Christ was. And that really stuck me. I knew.
I kept waiting for evangelical Christians to speak out, and they weren't speaking out. In October of 2019, Donald Trump came to Minneapolis. And I went towards the front of the line. I just cut in front of thousands of people. And I heard the people behind me, you just cut in line in front of thousands of people. And I said, my president taught me that I'm not breaking a law. I'm just breaking a norm. And there's no law against cutting in line. They talked amongst themselves and they let me stay, which really surprised me. So I managed to get seats right behind the president. So I stood directly behind him, and I just yelled at the top of my lungs, and you're a liar, you're a criminal. And it wasn't intelligent, but it was what I needed to say.
It's been a journey these last 6 months. It's been an interesting journey, a tough journey so far, because in my circles I'm meeting a lot of resistance. I'm learning how to speak to people. I'm making mistakes sometimes, but adjusting on how to speak on this matter without becoming everybody's enemy. People have unfriended the both of us over this issue. And that's the shame, because it's changed the behaviors of Christians today on Donald Trump. The behavior has changed so drastically. It's not anymore, it's no longer, well, we just disagree with you, but we still love you. The fangs are coming out, the claws are coming out.
It's the evangelicals that we're talking about that have politicized and codified church plus racism, church plus capitalism gone crazy, church plus anti-immigration, church plus anti-science. That church believes that Trumpianism is Christianity, and it's not.
I can't do this, where I pretend like racism can exist in the church. I will not play this game where I can believe that you think that Trump is over all things. The Christian church needs to have a coming to the Lord, where we recognize that we have gotten to some dark places, and we've said some things that I think are very, very scary.
Christianity's not in the greatest of shape right now. Just the support of Donald Trump really puts a bad testimony on Christianity.
To me, it is more important to preserve what Christianity is all about. And Christianity is about following Christ. He was loving, he was merciful, he was gentle, he was kind, he was truthful, he was real, he focused on eternity, not just temporal values. I am more concerned about the damage that's being done to Christianity than any fear that I may have of some liberal leader making temporary laws that I may not like.
So I would tell Christians, our conscience is being degraded by coming into Donald Trump's orbit. This is a serious thing. For people who are not believers in Jesus Christ, what they see is a whole bunch of people who claim to believe in Jesus Christ supporting a guy who abuses them every day. The things that he does, because of our support, he does in the name of Christ. That's the way the world sees it. And I would just say, we can't do that. We can't enable that. We can't be complicit in that sort of thing.
All right, Millie, you heard Jackie. We've got work to do. We've got a fight to fight. We've got stuff we got to continue to work on. Say, Lord, you're mighty.
If evangelical means, inviting people into a relationship with Christ, right? That's a kind of a way we think about it. So I want to say, come on over to love. Just come to love. If you don't have a strong biblical background and you want to know what would Jesus do, he would love the people. Not only did he say to do it, he showed us how to do it. So what does love look like? Everybody who you think doesn't belong inside, he brought them inside. From Nicodemus up in the tree, right, to the woman at the well, to the woman caught in adultery. If you have not sinned, throw a stone at her, otherwise shut up. To the sick ones, to the broken ones, to the wealthy ones, to the criminal on the cross, to the Roman centurion with a sick daughter. Everyone who culture would say to be on the outside, Jesus says puts on the inside. Those are basic truths that anybody can embrace. And if your pastor is saying different than that, you gotta ask yourself, what's up with that person? Which gospel is he preaching? Which Jesus is she teaching?
I've lost friends on Facebook. It's already happened. But I was like, at the end of the day, how are you going out and preaching the gospel? How are you going out and loving people?
All of us is a little broken. Every one of us has a broken space. And whether we fill that broken space with hate or love, or whether we fill it with violence or compassion, that's actually some choices that we have to make. And that's where we're at right now. What do we want to choose as our individual identity, and what do we want to choose as our corporate identity? Who do we really want to be? That's the question.
Think of all you made, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Say no praise is high enough to express how great you are.
I was home. It was a nice, bright Saturday. I teared up and I exhaled. It was just a wonderful, joyous feeling that Saturday.
Donald Trump is forward!
And so we drove down to Detroit and honked the horn all the way down, a couple of the main streets, and people were raising their hands.
They were honking back.
And then we went on a march through the city, waving our flags and saying, yeah, this is what democracy looks like.
It was a celebration. It was.
The fact that so many people did show up to vote and understood what was truly at stake in this election meant a lot to me. It means that a lot of people voted for the first time. And Trump didn't do a lot of things very well, but if he got people to start caring about the democratic system and participating in it, then thank you to that.
It's time for our better angels to prevail. Tonight, the whole world is watching America.
I may not agree with every single thing, but it is so relaxing to hear somebody talk in a way that's like, I am everybody's president.
Well, not to alarm anyone, but we're not out of the woods yet.
This is a case where they're trying to steal an election. They're trying to rig an election, and we can't let that happen.
Independents actually on the mall towards the United States Capitol.
I am not allowed to say what's going to happen today, but it's going to happen. Something's going to happen.
If you asked me 4 years ago, 5 years ago, if one mortal could have set and derailed a tone of a whole nation within a short 4-year period, I would have told you that the nation was more resilient than that. Certainly I was wrong.
Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now.
Good, bad, or indifferent, every president has left office peacefully, respectfully, right? Except for Trump.
I got 3 men walking down the street. If the thief was carrying AR-15, copy at 14th and Independence.
But yeah, I think he's making a coup attempt.
And he's literally trying to destroy and take down our democracy. And I got a fucking Republican Party that's letting them do it. I'm not in a good place these days.
We cannot pretend that we're on the same page. We're not on the same page. We have to acknowledge that there is a giant divide in our nation, and some of that division is around race, some of it's around class, some of it's around ideology and religion, but it's deep, and it has gotten entrenched in the two parties.
I think we need to also tackle misinformation, right-wing media, the current Republican Party. I think we need to tackle these issues so we can prevent Trump says he is planning on running for 2024 or elect a Trump-like candidate.
I swear to God, he will return. It'll be a manifestation of him that's smarter, that is more savvy, and understands the political environment, not only how to manipulate people's internal biases like Trump does, but he understands how to maneuver all of the levers of government and politics, not just the biased mind of a voter.
I feel like now we have 4 years to head off fascism, like for real.
Trumpism is not dead, and it may not die, and we have to try to inform people over these next 4 years the best that we can, because he may be back, or someone like him with that ideology can get back in.
You want to know what's crazy? The poem that Donald Trump has quoted at some of his rallies, "You knew I was a snake before you let me in." To me, that poem is about him. You let this snake in your house because you think he's going to protect you, but as soon as he has no benefit from protecting you, he's not going to anymore. And at that point, you knew the kind of person he was. He chose him.
We have the love. You keep the hate. We're gonna win.
We got a great big love to tear you down. We got a great big love to
tear you down. We got love. We got a great big love. We got a great.
What would I tell pre-Trump Joe Walsh? I've never thought about that. I would probably tell him to grow up. I'd probably throw those two words at him, grow up. I thought it was all about the fight. We gotta troll the Democrats. I don't care if we're right or wrong, we just gotta kick their ass. I'd tell that Joe Walsh to grow up. It's about the country, it's about, you don't have to lose your beliefs, but it's about putting country first.
I wouldn't do it. I would tell myself, don't do it. It's not worth the worry and the anxiety that it will bring in my life. And it's not worth the human life and the hate that this will happen to this nation with a vote for Donald Trump.
Christians love the fact that Donald Trump is owning the libs. And I think, do you realize the libs are just people like you and me?
I wish I had started that earlier. I wish I had spoken out against some things, because I think some things I remained silent on because I was too afraid to rub up against somebody.
A lot of people have forgotten who they really are and they've become completely lost. I was definitely on the verge of that.
Love is stronger than mind control. If it's within your control to say, I miss you, I love you, you know, we used to go fishing together, or, you know, I want to give you a hug. And that's why love and respect and compassion is going to be the solve for helping heal America, to bring us back. But I truly believe it's going to require mass education about psychology and mind control and the difference between ethical and unethical influence.
There's an organization called More in Common, and they put out polling that says that actually Democrats and Republicans have more in common than they think they do. And so then you have to say, well, cui bono, right, which is Latin for who profits? Who profits from, you know, the distortion that exists between the left and the right? Who profits from everyone being so polarized? And I think that's the question that needs to be answered.
It just takes a little bit of standing up, a little bit of speaking truth to power, a little bit from everybody. Just do something.
That's our prayer right now, is that in this incredible moment in time, that we, all of us, try to think about what do we really want for our lives, for the world. Do we want hate or do we want love? Do you want divisiveness or do we want love? Do you want abject poverty for some and more money than you'll ever count for others, or do we want love? Do we want to pretend like the earth isn't crying out in pain, or do we want love? That's the question. I want love.
We got love. Peace, love, and brotherhood, working for the greater good, love. Here to remind us to give forgiveness and kindness, that's love. We'll take care of each other together, we're strong. And if you're still here, well, you won't be for long. We got a great